Welcome into week 15 of the Unnamed Fantasy Football Show. Lisa Matthews, Galia and Felipe Corral here with you. And you're looking at some semi-finalists here in our league. Congratulations, guys.
Congratulations.
It's a long road, but we made it.
Congrats to you. I mean, you're the one with the biggest upset.
Yep,
Cinderella story. It's happening here. I cannot wait to win this thing and just have all bragging rights for the next year. We'll see, though. This is a big week for us. How are you guys feeling?
I mean, I play my man's over here, so I just looking at his squad, he's like so stacked up.
I know.
He was looking at his bench, talking about, man, my squad's stacked. I don't know who to start, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like,
you have some guys.
Yeah, just a couple. I mean,
at least I don't have that issue, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the number 1 seed in the league. It's not a big deal or anything, but
no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good.
We'll see. Well, let's take a look at the scores that actually got us here. From week 14, Jones, Suggs, and Harmony, 106. You got that win over the fantasy rookie. Maybe next year for the Rook.
Yeah,
we'll see. Fresh Prince, that was a heartbreaker.
Was
I was
tight.
actually watching your guys' scores go back and forth because I was so compelled to see who would pull it out at the end. But,
Carson Wentz, he was at like 15 points or something like that. And I texted Zach. And I said, pray for me, please. And literally like 2 minutes later, I saw my score and I had won. And, I went nuts.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was so crazy. Overtime
That's
win,
wild.
Touchdown to Zach Ertz. So.
And Two Spoons had a comeback year, too.
Poor Richard. He started off so rough and just made such a great comeback.
He made some good moves.
Great moves, yeah.
Imagine getting to, like, the playoffs after starting 0-3 or 1-4 or whatever it was, and then just losing to me. I mean, that's
by less than a point.
Yeah.
Well, I feel bad too. Kyler, the creator, 9-3. That's a top dog that went down.
Yep.
Oof. Feel bad for him in that one, but not for me. This was
and Taylor too.
Yeah,
she went
Taylor
down too.
A third placer.
The second and third seeds in the playoffs.
That's pretty. That's what happens when we all make the playoffs, and it's anyone's game at that point. All right, well, let's take a look at the top 10 list around the league. The guys that win. I mean, these scores are so high across all top 10. Drew Brees put up 40. I mean, anyone in that game between the Saints and the 49ers, look at how many guys there are. They just scored out of their mind.
Except for my 49ers defense.
That's not going to happen when it's 48-46. So, but yeah, Drew Brees, just a crazy stat line for him: 349 yards, 5 touchdowns, even a 1-yard rushing touchdown against one of the best defenses, which was a shocker there.
In New Orleans, I mean, that's never mind. They were in New Orleans, obviously. I was thinking about Jimmy Garoppolo.
Jameis Winston, 34.74. Now, we know, obviously, the risk with him interceptions-wise, but, I mean, a 300-yard game in his last 8 starts. I mean, he's gone off as of recent.
Maybe not the most successful NFL quarterback, but fantasy quarterback, he's not one you sleep on.
No.
And, I mean, if Jackson would have started him, he would have won. I mean, it's an easy dub right now, right there, putting up, almost 35 points. With how many interceptions did he have? He had like 3 or so. 4 touchdowns, but with 3 interceptions. And he fractured his thumb, too. So just moving forward, it's...
Yeah, he's definitely a strong option against the Lions defense this week. That is 30th in passing yards allowed, I believe. So
then the question...
Jackson can't anyway.
with Mike Evans out, I mean, I think an interesting hot start for me would be O.J. Howard.
Wow.
I mean, where do those targets go? Who does he throw the ball to if it's not Chris Godwin? I'm assuming they, put more attention defensively to Chris Godwin. So, who shares that?
Yeah.
So that's,
Yeah, I mean, it's a blessing for whoever owns Chris Godwin, which I know you.
Me.
Do. But yeah, I mean, just like you said, the targets have to go somewhere. I mean, you're not going to give Godwin 38 targets a game now, so. It'll be interesting to see who's kind of that next in line. I think O.J. Howard's a good opportunity.
Bruce, give Chris Godwin 38 targets, please.
Someone get him on the phone.
Just Godwin, just please. Emmanuel Sanders, 34.1 points. Now he had 7 catches for 157 yards and a touchdown, also adding a 35-yard touchdown throw in Sunday's 48-46 win over the Saints. Now he was a little banged up, obviously, with his ribs, but he clearly appeared to be back to full strength. and is a go against the Falcons this week.
Against the Falcons.
Yes.
That's the most important part right there, against the Falcons.
So start him.
Yeah. He's been a godsend for that 49ers offense, too. I mean, they've been looking for that number one receiver for a long time, and Emmanuel Sanders has kind of slid right in there and taken advantage of that opportunity.
Let's go down to my guy, Aaron Jones. Now, this is the performance I needed from my RB2 there. Oh,
he won you that game, basically.
Just 16 times for 134 yards and a touchdown in the win. I mean, I was waiting for that. He's kind of been up and down, but that's someone that obviously, especially if you have him and you're in the playoffs, I mean, you're looking at guys like that. They need to perform for you. And that's a guy I was just crossing my fingers for because he has had some lackluster performances. It made me a little nervous, but to come out and put up 31 points got me secure.
I mean, the previous 2 weeks, he had like less than 10 points, right?
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where you just started him and you prayed. Or
wait out the storm.
Yeah. And I'll keep him in my lineup, obviously, going forward, hoping that just back-to-back magic happens with him going forward. So we shall see. Again, let's go down to another Saints player here, Michael Thomas. 30.4 points. He brought in 11 of 15 targets for 134 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he's just a lock, obviously.
Yeah, third-ranked player in all of fantasy football at this point. It's pretty amazing for a wide receiver.
You mix that in with the fact that the Colts have allowed the most fantasy points to receivers over the past month.
Yes.
So it's just... I mean, it's a no-brainer. Regardless, you're going to start him.
Yeah,
but
and if you could start Michael Thomas twice, you would start him twice.
If you want to feel a little bit better about starting him, I mean, I don't think you do.
I don't think you have to talk anyone into starting Michael Thomas at this point.
And I'm going up against him. MJ has him, who I'm playing this week, so I just have to know.
Good luck.
Yeah, I mean, I just know what's going to happen and hope that my players can. Perform a little bit. Yeah, outduel. Zach Ertz made the top 10.
Well, and let's go back to someone that you skipped that's very important to my lineup.
Well, yeah,
Austin Eckler.
Sorry.
So I have to admit, I tried to trade him so many times when Melvin Gordon came back. He was like the centerpiece of every deal that I tried to offer to every human being in our league.
Including me.
Oh, yeah, I think it was every single person got a trade offer. But luckily for me, no one accepted, and I've kind of been reaping the rewards for that. So, I mean, he had one kind of down week when Melvin Gordon first got back, and he's been killing it ever since. It's crazy to think that, there is a running back ahead of him in LA with the points that he puts up every week.
Let's take a look at the Cardinals players and how their fantasy implications, obviously heading into this week, how they performed in week 14. We have Christian Kirk, 16.9 points. He was limited in practice on Wednesday. We'll see about that today. I figure he will be limited or full go with an ankle, but he bounced back seemingly against the Steelers, was 8 of 9 for 80. I almost said 185 yards. 85. Yeah,
we want that.
I don't like that.
85 yards receiving, in obviously the tough loss to the Steelers. Now the question this week, a Week 15 matchup against the Browns, their top 6 pass defense. It might not be as favorable. So what do you do with a guy like Christian Kirk if you have him on your roster?
I mean, they're a top 6 actual NFL defense, but in fantasy they give up the 12th most points to wide receivers. So again, where kind of real football and fantasy football differ, but Christian Kirk, Larry Fitzgerald, they're going to get 5 or 6 targets a game at least, and hopefully more. But I think if Christian Kirk's on my team, he's probably a wide receiver 2, maybe a flex, but I still think I'd be relatively confident that he's going to pick it up. It's
also game flow. If Kyler Murray gets the time he needs in the pocket. I mean, you saw that 31-yard reception that Christian Kirk had last week that really, ignited this offense. So if they keep that flow going, he's averaging 8.8 targets per game. He's had 1 drop all season. He's Kyler Murray's favorite target. I think he's if I had him, I'd confidently start him as a flex. I wouldn't necessarily say wide receiver 2. I mean, it's understanding, but, he's a good start.
Yeah.
Now the Browns, to note, allowed just one opposing wide receiver, that was Cincinnati's Tyler Boyd, to exceed 45 receiving yards Sunday. So it is a tough matchup for any of the receivers on this roster. But yes, if you go down to Kyler Murray, we'll get to David Johnson, obviously. Murray completed 20 of 30 pass attempts for 194 yards while throwing 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. That's obviously what hurt him. But mobile quarterbacks against the Browns. Listen to this. Marcus Mariota, 26.8 fantasy points. Lamar Jackson, 31 points. Russell Wilson, 31.9. Josh Allen, 38.1. So if you get him, if he has the ability to bounce back, be mobile, use his skill set to be mobile, that can obviously open things up in the air for some of the receivers, and just possibly could be a bounce back game for Kyler Murray as he's struggled in these past 2.
Yeah, I just think you can tell by just the way he's been, addressing the media and just his kind of general persona is, he's not thrilled with how things have been going. And I don't know that anyone is, but, these last couple performances, it seems as if he's trying to take too much onto his own plate and kind of pressuring, some different throws that maybe he's not used to doing or not used to kind of making those decisions and trying to force things. But I just think this is the perfect opportunity against the right defense where if Kyler's on my team, he's probably the quarterback I'm starting this week.
And it's their last home game. I mean, you just want to come out firing, especially, Zach mentioned it, but he's kind of taken these last couple of weeks personally. He hasn't had more than 200 passing yards in the past 3 games. He's been sacked more than 4 times in each of those 3 games. So it gets to a point where you just, all right, my last home game.
You can tell he's pressing a little bit because he's taking care of the ball so well all season. So these past couple of games kind of just seem like a little off, just trying to press it and push it too much for him. And there's bragging points and between him and Baker Mayfield. Just, I'm sure, they're excited and juiced up to play each other, extra motivation there. So I'm sure he's not taking that lightly. Going back to David Johnson, he scored 13.3 points, and it was kind of comical looking through Twitter during that, people's GIF reactions to that. Obviously, David Johnson don't care. We know that. But in the fantasy world, most likely he was on my bench just because of the situation in the running backs room. Just no telling who's going to really shine week to week. But just awesome to see him as a David Johnson supporter, Cardinal fan, just to see him bounce back. And going into this week, it's another situation. I do have on my team. There's just an unknown. I have 2 strong running backs between Ezekiel Elliott and Aaron Jones. So might play David Johnson in my flex because I think I've said this week after week, can be utilized in the passing game. And we saw it there with that 24-yard touchdown. So we'll see. I have some decisions to make here, but...
Well, tell us right now.
Flex. I would put him in my flex.
Yeah.
I'm going to hold you to it.
Look at his stats. His rushing yards, definitely not where he would want them to be. No. Receiving yards, even more so than his rushing yards. So he is one of those running backs, like obviously not to Christian McCaffrey or kind of that level, but he is that dual threat running back where, you can line him up outside like you saw in that touchdown and, the man can catch. We've seen that, and 35 catches on the year, 4 receiving touchdowns. If you need kind of that spark in your lineup, and maybe you're deciding between the safe option or something that might push you over to a championship, David Johnson's not necessarily a bad way to go.
Cleveland has given up 4.8 yards per carry. I haven't been that convinced of Kenyon Drake in the past 4 games specifically. He's only surpassed 40 or more rushing yards once in the past 4 games. It may be time for, DJ to ignite and give this offense a spark that it needs. So start him, Lisa.
We shall see next week. Speaking of Kenyon Drake, he had 9.7 points. Again, ran for 37 yards on 11 carries, hauled in 3 of his targets for 30 yards. Again, we know that he is the front runner in that running backs room. They're going to give him the touches as the RB1. So I think if you're in a deep league, yes, play him. But how do you guys feel? Obviously, because Chase Edmonds didn't. I mean, he had what? He dropped a catch, and then one of his punt was
Yeah, I mean, just looking back even at Kenyon, it's just, he's had a few good games since he's been here, but it's not necessarily like he's a must start by any means. I mean, 9.7 last week, 7.1 the week before. He had 14 the week before that, 10.10, and then his big 28-20 or 28.20 like first debut. So, I mean, it seems as if he's at the top of the depth chart in the Cardinals backfield, but it's not necessarily
so close because I'm throwing in the option of Chase Edmonds here.
Chase Edmonds,
and we saw
David
that
Johnson,
3 running back set, and I know that's fantasy owners are like, if you started one of them, you're like, who are you going to give the ball to here? I mean, they probably despise it, but it's just so unknown still. Even in week 15, here we are talking about the running back position for the Cardinals.
So in the semifinals, let's say someone's in the semis and he has a chance to start Kenyon Drake or another RB2, RB3 type of running back.
I mean, it would depend on who the other one is, right? Like, you would assume that Kenyon's probably going to get you 10 points as just kind of the baseline. So if that's what you think you need to move on, then go with Kenyon Drake. But if you have someone that has that big playability, and I mean, Kenyon Drake has that as well, but it's just when you've seen big plays happen over the last, 4 or 5 weeks, it's not necessarily Kenyon putting those up. It's somebody else. It's Andy Isabella. It's David Johnson. It's somebody aside from the, top running back in the stable. So, I mean, if it's confusing for opposing defenses which running back is going to get used, I don't expect fantasy owners to know how to kind of manage this backfield.
I do have Kenyon in my other league, also in the semis this week.
Shout
out. He's projected 14.6. I have him on my bench right now.
Who's your other?
But I have Gurley and D. Henry starting.
Who's your flex right now?
My flex is Carson.
Yep. See, in that situation, would you start Chris Carson or Kenyon Drake?
I mean, I'm probably going with Chris Carson.
Yeah. So I have him slotted in my flex.
Especially with what's the name, Penny, who just went down and he's out. So you assume Carson's going to get the workload there and quite a bit of it, and especially a Seahawks team that's trending really well, and a Panthers team that's kind of reeling. So
let's go down to the Cardinals defense. No one owns that one. No one owns. Yeah,
free agent.
I thought it was going to be you, Zach.
No, I got the Niners defense.
But they had it
minus 1,000
7 points. Minus 1,000. 7 points, 3 sacks, 2 takeaways. So this was one of their better outings. I mean, the Browns' offense isn't as prolific or kind of what the expectations were going into this season, but I don't really see this as a favorable matchup for if you have the Cardinals.
No, I mean, I think you're seeing more of the turnovers, and obviously we with sacks every game, but it's the points against. Like you're when the Cardinals are playing, you're not expecting it to be a 14-7 game. You're expecting it to be 35-38 or something like that. So I think the defense is trending in the right direction. But I'm sure there are probably better options out there this week.
And I mean, I feel like as a cornerback, you look at your schedule and you look at matchups. I'm playing OBJ. He won at LSU. Extra motivation for someone like Patrick Peterson. Obviously, Steve Wilkes is the defensive coordinator for the Browns, and he used to be the head coach last year. So I mean, maybe that motivation, gives it translates into a good game, and maybe they get 8-10 points, fantasy points. So you roll the dice.
Yeah. Who has OBJ?
It's that time of the year. I do.
My guy over here.
Yeah.
You starting?
That's the only reason I said it. That's the only reason I don't know. What I just said was to
feed him into a decision over here.
No, I mean
to help you out.
Right now, it's my decisions between Darius Slayton from the Giants and OBJ. OBJ, I got in a trade with Kyle in the middle of the season, and I don't know that trade worked out for either of us. But OBJ's kind of been hit or miss across the board. I think, just like you said, with him going against P2 and wanting to prove himself as, kind of getting himself back into that top wide receiver in the NFL category and conversation. But I mean, Darius Slayton's been great for the last however many weeks, where it's just what you're going to get from him. It's consistent. Whether it's Eli Manning or it's Daniel Jones, you know what you get from him. Where OBJ, again, it's like, he could put up 35 points this week, or he could get you 3. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things where it's like if you need that extra push,
I think he'll put up 3. Just saying, don't start him.
It will be such an interesting matchup this week with all the connections, the extra fire motivation we'll see, and obviously with us. May the best man between you guys win.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll talk about the championship.
In the championships, Lisa.
Yeah, who wants to see me in the championships? Let's just say.
I would. It would be nice. Yeah, would be nice.
And if you're watching, congratulations to you making it this far in the semis in your league. We hope you enjoy today's show. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.